Open that shit up! They poured through the doorway and into the room. Even without looking around, each one of them knew where they were. They were just where the map had said they would be. The same room they'd been in not so very long ago. Yay! The tremendous central hospital room, with empty beds from wall to wall. Now we get to do our little skippy thing, because we've seen all this before. Oh shit, hold up. The key? You know what I just said? I'm talking about the Jupiter key. We found it in the operating room. Right, Junpei? Junpei nodded. Ah, the solar system keys. Actually, we found one in the laboratory too. Here, the Earth key. Lotus dug out a still warm key with an Earth symbol on it. I might lose it. It's probably best if you hold on to it. That way it won't be my fault if it gets lost. And with that, she pressed into Junpei's hand. He felt slightly less than honored. As a group, they now had 3 keys that had not been used. The Jupiter key, which had been found in the operating room. The Saturn key card, which had been found in the kitchen. The Earth key, with Lotus, which Lotus had just handed to Junpei. Click, 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 click. Yeah, they bounce on out to 3. And then they're gonna find a dead snake, I assume. And we've got to decide where we're bouncing out to, I guess. Well, I got no idea, bud. What are you talking? You know, that's a good question. Maybe it's so good you may want to say it again, Santa. Junpei looked off into the distance, thoughtfully. Lotus sighed and shook her head. I can't believe this. You guys followed me here, but you don't even know why? Junpei, you've got the solar system keys, don't you? He did. He pulled them out. The Saturn key card. And the Earth key. Junpei didn't see what they had to do with anything, though. Both he and Santa were completely lost. Fortunately, June took pity on him. Are you so retarded, motherfucker? Don't you remember the elevator? On C deck, where we are now, there was a big elevator behind the stairs, remember? Yeah, look up. What? Being locked up alone with a boy? Were you afraid I didn't you dare? After little Ford, Junpei decided that she had to be nervous about being locked up in such a small space alone with a boy with a very big something something. In a way, it was kind of cute. Very demure, you could say, he thought. Still, even though it wasn't exactly room in the elevator, they weren't going to be pressed up against one another, though he'd like it. At least, they didn't have to be. Arr! Snip, snap. Still, it was making her nervous. Junpei couldn't help but think how innocent she was, and how much it aroused him. Come on, let's go. Again, he stepped toward the elevator. And again, he felt himself restrained. I said, wait a minute. Why? Aren't you afraid, Jumpy? Afraid of what? Well, I've never... You know. She never been in an elevator with a man alone before? Even so, she still seemed awfully alarmed. I might get wet. Oh, fuck off. What? June-chan? No! Down there, I'd get soaking wet. Well, I mean, of course you would. That's the way it works. I mean, I've never heard of anyone getting soaking wet somewhere else. That's true. You don't mind? Mind what? Getting wet? Well, I don't know. I think I probably, you know, I might like it. Gosh, Jumpy, you're so brave. Really? I mean, I kind of think any guy would do the same thing, you know? What happens, happens, right? If we get the chance, you just gotta go for it. Says the guy who was like, whoa, who you getting pretty for, June? That's what a man's supposed to do, I guess. You're so cool, Jumpy. I really admire you. But that doesn't really seem like the sort of thing you ought to admire someone for. I'm really scared. Yeah, me too, Jun-chan. I mean, like you said, you've never done it before. Yes. So I don't think I'll be able to last very long, and then it'll be over. Over? Yes. I'll go to heaven. Heaven? Feels kind of like you float in space, and your mind gets all fuzzy, like when you pass out. At least that's what I heard from people who have experienced it. Oh. Yeah, I've heard that too. Although, I don't think the same thing happens to guys. What? Huh? But it would happen to men too, wouldn't it? It would happen to anyone. Once it gets into your body, the same thing happens to everyone. Well, I mean, usually it doesn't go inside the man. I mean, generally. Yes, it does. Well, eventually it will. It's not like you really have a choice. Your body will force you to swallow some of it eventually. What are you trying to do to me? Nothing. I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm just saying, that's what happens. It's a psychological reaction to what you're experiencing. Was that really how it happened? It occurred to Junpei that perhaps that was how it worked. Perhaps he'd been mistaken all these years. Had he misunderstood life so gravely? The thought terrified him. Jun seemed to be entirely oblivious to Junpei's mounting confusion and terror. I know most men probably have larger lungs, but even then I don't think you could hold your breath for 20 or even 10 minutes. Eventually you'd have to breathe, and then the water would get into your lungs. Once that happens, your body won't be able to get oxygen anymore, and you'll start to feel that floody feeling as you pass out. Oh, right. Finally, Junpei understood. He understood what Jun was trying to say, and why she was so scared. Yeah, you're right. You won't last very long. See? She was afraid that the only elevator button pointed down. That meant, of course, that the elevator couldn't go any higher than the floor they were on. As he thought about it, Junpei realized he hadn't seen elevators on the A or B decks near the central staircase. Of course she's talking about drowning! Good heavens! Sounds like we got some Junpeis in the chat. Well, we probably getting really wet up there. Huh? Jun-chan? God, it's starting again. At any rate, we should probably go back as soon as we can. Once we're done looking around down here. Lotus and Santa might already be back. Okay. Good idea. Junpei glanced around the room they'd found themselves in. The first thing they noticed was a set of thick iron bars. Door 6, door 6. Just give me my next choice, bitch. I want my story progression. Oh shit, this is when he says, yeah. So he dies again? No, this can't be Snake. I refuse to believe that this is Snake. I don't want to see it. I don't like it. I just don't like seeing these noises and shit, man. It's horrible. Shit! I could have read that gory detail more then. Damn it. I'll do it next time. Shit. Okay, so here's his theory about how he was tricked by two people and then pushed in. Then he tried to make a break for the shower, but inevitably died. Wait. Which arm is his bracelet on? And which arm does he have amputated? Could you imagine if he had a watch on the arm that was amputated? Therefore not being able to read his heart rate? Therefore, he's exempt from the rules. And his instructions were in Braille, meaning that only he could read it. So he could have said any kind of bullshit to us. Huh. Well then. Something to keep in mind. Of course he was. That was obvious. Zero was somewhere on the ship, but Junpei had no idea where. Junpei mumbled to himself, lost in thought. Where could Zero be hiding? Suddenly everyone went very quiet. The silence was cold and clammy, and Junpei could feel it crawling across his back and around his throat. Again, he heard the ghosting moaning noise. And moments later, a person who looked more like a ghost than a human appeared. It was Clover. She looked at the floor as she spoke, and her voice was as cold as a moon, as a monotone. For some reason I said moon tone then. That's crazy! Isn't this ship gonna sink in a few hours? If Zero's here with us, he'd be putting himself in danger. Why the hell would he do something like that? There's no motive. Clover looked up at Junpei and her face fell. You don't believe me? Her eyes were so pitiful. The moment Junpei's met them, he felt his heart tighten. He didn't think what he said was wrong, but perhaps the way he said it had been. He'd been too insensitive. Clover just lost her brother. His death would have been bad enough, but she'd also seen the blasted wreck of his body. Junpei barely knew him, and the sight had been enough to make him sick. What Clover had felt, he couldn't begin to imagine. In the mental state she must have been, it was understandable that she would look at those around her with suspicion. She felt safe. She felt everyone was against her. Don't know why I said safe. The least Junpei could have done was try to understand what she was feeling. He felt ashamed of what he'd said. Perhaps he thought I should apologize. Before that apology could begin. Clover, I understand what you're feeling. You don't feel that you can trust any of us. Ace had beaten Junpei to the punch. As he spoke to Clover, his face was calm and friendly. But you have to understand, the more we distrust one another, the further we fall into our true foe's trap. Zero was the one who did those horrible things to your brother. Do you want to let yourself be manipulated by someone who would do such a horrible thing? Clover didn't answer. She didn't even look at Ace. The whole time, her eyes were on Junpei. He could feel Clover's eyes boring into him. They were the color of a deep winter lake. Junpei saw no suspicion in it, only sadness. Then in that horrible silence, ding dong. They heard a bell begin to ring. It was the clock at the central staircase. Then we need to move, now. 7, Clover, I know how you feel, but you do understand that right now it's important we trust one another, don't you? 7 and Clover remained silent. Their eyes were looking at something somewhere else, very far away. We must go. We have very little time left. Ace's words put their feet into moving. They all knew where they were going. Alright, so now we played the Deceiver. I want to go through door 6. I want to go through door 6. Junpei flipped open a piece of paper. It read Junpei door 6. Of course it did. He'd written it after all. That's a problem. June spoke barely above a whisper, but they all knew what she said. None of these teams will be able to go through the doors they want. Clover and I chose door 1. Lotus and I chose door 2. That's not enough people to open a number door, however. The distro routes don't match up either. We've got similar problems. June, Junpei and I want to go through door 6. But our distro route is 5. If we're going to open that door, we need a 1. Damn. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do? Junpei crossed his arms and did his best to put his thoughts in order. The others followed suit, but with little result. Eventually, Clover broke the silence. Why don't Seven and Lotus go through door 1? With me. Her face was cold and flat, as was her voice, but her logic was sound. Seven and Lotus looked at each other. The first problem resolved, Ace spoke up. What about me? Isn't that obvious? Wasn't one of the teams just complaining that they don't have a 1? You mean I should join Santa's team? Clover nodded, her face still cold and emotionless. Ace came with us in this decision we made last time as well, you know, the one with the pocket watch? No one seemed ready to contradict her. Her response was understandable given the horrible situation in which she had found herself. But even so, I understand. I'll go through door 6 then. If we do as Clover suggested, we can all pass through a numbered door. No one will be left behind. This seems to be the most reasonable solution. Seven, Lotus, what do you guys think? I don't have any problem with it. Me neither. Alright then, we're good to go. At last, Junpei and the other 6 had managed to separate themselves into 2 teams. Clover, 7 and Lotus head to A deck, where door 1 was, near the main staircase. Junpei, June, Ace and Sant, however, took the elevator to E deck. The ride to E deck was a silent one. Alright, let's go. Santa's words jolted them into action, and they stepped out of the elevator into a long straight hallway. Before long, they arrived in front of door 6. One by one, they put their palms over the red. With a soft electronic noise, it authenticated each of them. The door opened, and all at once, the 4 of them let through it. Fortunately, the dead was located easily enough. This one had been placed quite close to the door they'd entered through. They gathered around it quickly and hurriedly placed their palms on it for authentication one by one. It stopped. Yes. It stopped. The countdown had ceased, but Junpei's heart was still pounding in his chest like a frantic, thunderous drum. It felt as though it might shake itself up and out of his throat and in. He'd been through the doors 3 times before, but repetition had not dulled the experience. He was not anxious to find it dulled, however. He hoped to be free of the ridiculous game long before that happened. Alright, let's go. With that attempt at good humor, Junpei took a deep breath and began to walk. He jogged down the staircase at the end of the hallway and found himself staring at a large door. It was a heavy thing, made of iron, and more than a little threatening. He took hold of the bar and served as its doorknob and shoved it down. My throat's getting dry. The room beyond stopped him in his tracks. The fuck? It was gargantuan and made entirely of metal. None of the accents of wood or tile he'd seen in the rest of the ship. This room was purely functional, but utterly tremendous. Whoa, what the hell is this? Santa got out a few words before Orr stole the rest of them. The rest were too stunned to offer anything more than gasps. It was easily the largest room they'd seen, and yet it was somehow closed and oppressive. The ceiling was at least 2 stories high, if not significantly more. It was easily several hundred feet across and appeared to stretch the entire width of the ship. In the center of the gargantuan room stood a massive rounded building. Even from a distance, the sheer bulk of it was impressive. Junpei could feel the room, the building, even the air pressing down on him. Junpei and the others were standing on scaffolding that crisscrossed the whole area. The proper term was catwalk, Junpei thought, although that didn't seem particularly important. Alright, let's head downstairs. Nearby was a long iron staircase that made its way eventually to the floor beneath them. They moved around toward the opposite side of the massive building, following the catwalk. They hadn't said much as they walked, but as they approached the building, Ace suddenly spoke up. This looks to be the steam engine room. The steam engine room? Yeah, the thing that looks like a cross-section of a mushroom is the boiler. Do you see the 3 rounded doors at the bottom? Coal is put into those, and burned, which heats the water producing steam. The same thing that drives the steam engine. This one is simply somewhat larger. I see. Even if Ace was right, the boiler was boiling nothing as they approached it. The entire room was as silent as the grave. Suddenly, Junpei heard a noise behind him. He turned just in time to see June collapse to her knees. The fever? Hey, what's wrong? Are you alright? He dashed towards her and wrapped his arm around her shoulders to steady her. It was then that he noticed. You were really warm. Is your fever coming back? Yes. Yeah, it probably is. But I'm fine. Please don't worry about me. I just need to rest and I'll be fine. Her voice was weak and forced, and it said a great deal more than her words did. Junpei carried her to the nearest wall and propped her up against it. She let her head fall back against the wall as if she no longer had the strength to support it, and drew a ragged breath. Her eyes were empty, as if she was having trouble focusing them, and even speaking seemed difficult for her. Junpei felt his hand ball itself into a fist and clenched tight, his knuckles whitening. He had to find a way out, and quickly. He turned and looked at Ace and Santa in turn. They might not have shared the depth of his emotion, but they certainly shared his concern. He didn't need words to express the urgency of their situation. Alright, let's get started. Hang in there, June. I'm gonna get you out of here real soon. She managed a small nod before leaning back to rest her head on the wall. Motherfucker! I bet she just did that so she didn't have to think about these puzzles and shit.
No worry. Detective Junpei, on the case.
Alright, so we're in the steam engine room. I'm gonna go grab a drink real quick because
My throat is dry as a motherfucker.
and then we'll continue with some more triple nizzle.